Welcome to Blue Monday. It's just myself and Rodger this week as Les Roberts has decided to go travelling the world like most Premier League footballers do at some stage in the summer. Although many others are in the US, suffering from thunderstorms and having to postpone games for over 2 hours. If anybody's been watching what happened with Chelsea over the weekend, but we've been quite sceptical over that throughout the summer so far.
I think it's a bit of a bottle job from Les, to be honest with you, because he obviously couldn't take the searing heat of Britain in June, and he's gone to somewhere cooler, which is in fact Marrakesh,
Yeah.
which may well be cooler than,
It might not be
England.
the only bottle that you're referring to there, by the way, because
No,
I've seen him sitting by the pool there, reading a few Everton books as well. So I hope he's enjoying
so
his
long
well
as
earned
he's
break.
keeping hydrated, he must keep well hydrated.
Yeah, he'll let us know about that next. I think he's back next week or maybe the week after. I don't know how much of the world he's traveling. Anyway, this week we've got quite a few bits and pieces on the agenda, and we're going to start with Dominic Calvert-Lewin is finally leaving the club, and I probably sound quite disingenuous there to say that about a player who was with the club for so many years, but he's leaving. It was announced, I think, earlier this week or late last week. It's finally come to pass, which has been something that has been lingering for quite some time, Rodger. And we were just talking before we started about the statistics between him and Dominic Calvert-Lewin, which I'll read out in a second.
And Duncan Ferguson, yeah.
Yeah, I'll read them out in a second. But what I want to get to is how they're perceived by us as a fan base and pretty much everybody else in the game. So Dominic Calvert-Lewin leaves the Blues with 71 goals in a total of 274/73 appearances, which we're looking over all sorts of sources to see which one it was. I'm not sure what the game was where someone either seen him or didn't see him. And the other stat for Duncan Ferguson is remarkably similar. He scored 72 goals in 273 games over his 2 periods with the club with the Newcastle mess in between. So Calvert-Lewin, many as you can imagine on social media, I mean, I'm one, as you know, dives into all of this stuff 24/7 like a bit of a loser, but I know you won't be inclined to do the same thing. But he'll have been getting, as you will assume, plenty of good riddance. Good riddance. We don't really care. This should have happened earlier. You know, it's crap that we're not getting any money for it. But all in all, guys, goodbye. And you were basically crap for the last few years. Now compare that to Duncan Ferguson, who of course was front and centre at the Goodison Park closure against Southampton, following the Southampton game at the end of last season. And he's lauded. I can only really say the name Duncan Ferguson. Everyone refers to him as legend, icon. You could discuss and debate that all day long, whether he's classed as a legend or not. But with those stats, similar to Calvert-Lewin, does this show the generations that we're looking at with these two in terms of when we got Duncan Ferguson back in the mid-90s? Everton a very different prospect at the time. Everton a very different club at the time to the one we're seeing now. But the way in which they're both perceived by fans, I mean, I think it's really interesting this. But does it put a more harsh perspective on Calvert-Lewin, the fact that Duncan Ferguson was adored, given the fact he had the same, basically the same stats?
So, I mean, two really different personalities, I think, is at the heart of this, right? And Ferguson played to the gallery really well. He was a much more aggressive player, off the ball particularly, and was someone, his goal celebrations, you could see that the fans kind of instantly identified with him. There was something of the bad boy about him. And every club loves a bad boy of their own, don't they? Whether it's Luis Suarez or Paul Ince or Mark Hughes or whoever, he's the kind of player that opposition fans hate, but that if he's yours, you love him. And I think Calvert-Lewin was he's very much an outlier of modern footballers. He's a bit of a thinker. He's a bit of necessarily say he's the standard that you would see from a Premier League footballer. However, he doesn't keep himself to himself, does he? He's on the cover of GQ or whatever it was. Him and Tom Davis with skateboards and whatever they were wearing. And that's a kind of Marmite thing, isn't it? With a lot of fans that I don't think fans necessarily could. I found it as easy to identify with Calvert-Lewin as they did with Ferguson. But also, I don't think Calvert-Lewin was that smart with his own PR. Football fans are fickle, and football fans are kind of, bipolar in many ways. If you put something out there, you're going to encourage them. And I'm not saying it's right, because it isn't. There's no excuse for online abuse. But if you say something controversial, you're more likely to attract the sort of empty heads who are going to have a pile on. But coming back to his stats, they're pretty similar, of course. But what they aren't is consistent. Well. When I say they aren't consistent, there are only 2 seasons, and they were obviously involving Ancelotti, 1920 and 2021, where he scored double figures. That's it. He scored 13 goals in 36 games in the 1920 season, and he scored 16 goals the following season in slightly fewer appearances. He was on a goal every other game, 33 appearances and 16 goals in that season 2021. When he was prime Inzaghi, stay in the box, that great header in the opening game away at Tottenham. That was prime Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and he was in the England squad, I think, then.
Yeah.
He got called up to the England squad. Since then, Dave, he's scored 5 goals, 2 goals, 7 goals, and 3 goals in the Premier League. And frankly, that's rubbish. I mean, that doesn't matter how nice a guy you are or how many games you've been injured for. 3 goals in 26 games last season, 7 goals in 32 the previous one, 22-23, 2 goals in 17, and 21-22, 5 goals in 17. That's not good enough. That's not the standard required for a Premier League leading the line number 9, which probably explains why no one's come in for him. I think his leaving statement is fine and heartfelt, and I think it's very good. It's very well composed and quite sensitively written. So credit to him, and I don't think anybody wishes him ill. But I think it's an interesting spin that he says he's chosen to leave. I think it's quite clear the club didn't offer him a contract. He hasn't turned down a contract. Has he left by mutual consent? It's a funny thing to say. We know that. Did we offer a contract to Ashley Young or not? I can't remember. Did we offer him and he wanted a 2-year deal? Can't remember. But he left and that was all done and dusted. Seamus has signed on again. We know that, and hopefully Idrissa is about to, if he hasn't already, right? But I think Michael Keane and Doucouré, we seem to be, in a similar. There's not going to be an offer and they're going to disappear, right? But so are those players choosing to leave, or is the club just releasing them? That's fine. It's a shame we're not getting a transfer fee, because prime, Calvert-Lewin back in, like I said, in those seasons when he was scoring, 1 in 2, you could have thought 60, 70 million pound striker. Right now, I think his open market value is pretty low.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what he does move on to. I think it'll come out in the wash, won't it, in the next few days? If he ends up turning up at another club, then we'll be like, well, he did choose to leave himself, and it wasn't the club who said they're not going to offer him a contract. I think the length of time that it went on to will probably be an indication to what your opinion is, whether he was offered or rejected the contract or not. I think he's trying to save face by saying he's decided to leave rather than Everton have wanted him to leave. But the sort of the wash that comes with that is it leaves Everton in a position that we have done in so many other positions on the pitch, and that is with only Beto left as a striker. Schmidt looks like he's going to be going out on loan, or there's talks that he's going out on loan. What are we now? About 6 weeks away from the start of the season. You're starting to get a little bit nervous. You're starting to shake a little bit with all of this, Rodger.
Well, I mean, Beto was front and centre of the new shirt video, wasn't he? And that tells you everything you need to know. The big man there. I mean, will he get the number 9 shirt? I don't know. I think it's
anyone left. I think.
Well, possibly. Yeah, he can have his choice of any number of numbers. Apparently, it's 2 weeks till we play Accrington Stanley, which I really don't care about those pre-season fixtures. But it'd be good if we could take, a squad of 16 or 17 to Accrington. And at the moment, I think our squad is still sat at 13 or 14. Am I nervous? No, I just think it's the way we do business. Is there that much business going on? Actual business? I mean, Chelsea are just spending £60 million on João Pedro. I cannot get my head around that at all, where he's going to play. So there are some deals. Obviously, City got their business done early, and so have the Red Shite. Spurs haven't signed anyone. United are just scrambling around, playing chicken with Brian and Bomo. So there hasn't been that much activity. I don't buy that we can't sign anyone till the 1st of July. That's nonsense, because it simply is. If we needed to sell, we should have sold them by the 30th of June. The fact that we've got Alcaraz in, big tick in the box, and the fact that it looks as though if he hasn't already, has he signed? Don't know. Branthwaite, has he signed the new contract, or is he about to? But it sounds like there's a lot of progress been made there, which is good. Nothing about Kenny Tete, but I guess rather like Calvert-Lewin, his contract's up today, so maybe he signs tomorrow. There are some positive noises, there are some encouraging noises, but as we said last week, I think it's disappointing that our new head of scouting and recruitment isn't arriving until September. And I think it's disappointing that the club couldn't negotiate, rather like Real Madrid did with the Red Shite. Can you release Trent early, please? Because we want him to come and play in America. And why we couldn't, it's very common practice in business to negotiate an end of gardening leave and give them an extra bit of money to pay out the balance of the contract. So it's a shame. But I'm not actively, because this is Everton, isn't it? This is how we operate. Last minute Larry. And let's see who comes in the door. But we had a question, didn't we? I think somebody said, why do we need more than one striker when City have only got Haaland? Well, I think there's two answers to that. One, we can't afford a Haaland or, a 40-goal-a-season machine. And secondly, Manchester City have goals from many, many other players who are going to hit double figures. And, who's your money on in our squad that might get double figures next season? Currently, perhaps better. Maybe Alcaraz, 8 to 12, maybe Dwight McNeil, maybe. But, 40-odd goals last season were barely enough. I'm not sure where those 40 goals are coming from in the current squad. So I think we do need, and I think competition, I'm a great believer in competition. So that's why I'd like to see a couple of people coming in and challenging Beto, or even can play alongside him in this mobile front three that we've talked about, or a 3 and a 1. So we need resources, we need competition, and you need backup to allow for injuries as well. Look at Calvert-Lewin, look at his recent record. Haaland missed nearly half the season, or certainly a few months of the season, did he not? It's really only Liverpool who don't seem to get any injuries at all. I wonder why that is. Bring on the inhalers or whatever.
Yeah,
the magic sponge.
The podcast series is coming with them just before the season starts on how Liverpool operate in their fitness department. It was Chris Haight who asked that question, by the way, about Haaland. On that, and I don't want to sort of keep kicking back to Calvert-Lewin leaving, and I am somebody who's quite nervous about this in terms of not getting some sort of action transfer wise.
Well, we can't
because I think there's not.
I'm trying to play the straight man here. When it's just you and me, we can't both be nervous. Yeah. I'm trying to play the optimistic one, which is a role I'm not normally suited to.
I was going to say, Les have been giving you a message on your own without putting it in our WhatsApp group. But where I have a concern is there's not enough meat on the bone there, as we've explained, about having 10 players to go to a pre-season friendly, or when we go to the States in a fortnight. Be interesting to see what happens then, because that's the perfect. If you're the way that our new owners are, that I presume that'd be right up their street to get a sign in there to present them to everybody, to do all the merchandise and all that sort of thing. I think that's sort of what they succeed at in big parts of what they operate as a business. For our situation now, we don't fully know what we're able to go and spend. I would like to feel the indication of what's happened with Calvert-Lewin and others leaving means that there is a plan in place. But the longer it goes, it's when I start to sort of getting a bit shaky about what we're going to be doing or not doing going forward, plus the amount of positions we're going to be. I mean, let's face it, when we start that season against Leeds, you're looking at least, I think, half a dozen players who Everton don't have right now starting that game against Leeds, which I don't know how you feel about that, because I mean we've had seasons gone by, and to me that sticks in my mind is 2014 after the World Cup, when I think a couple of our players, I think even Lukaku got back a couple of days before we started the season, and we were so undercooked that I think we may have started it with a draw away at Leicester or something like that in Cardiff. But the point was, Everton were miles away from being a Premier League fit and ready side due to the World Cup that happened. people know this is going to happen, Rodger. People know what the time limit is. They're giving the dates. They're giving the fixtures. And like we've said, it's not like you said at the start. It's nonsense given the date that all of these contracts end, and people are available to go and sign contracts with various clubs and do deals. That's that. Basically, there is no transfer window in that regard, is there? Because clubs can go and do that. They're just waiting for the door to open so they can go and sign a piece of paper. That's essentially what it is these days, the transfer window. So from that point of view, I'm a bit concerned with this. With that in mind, and we have hinted on it with what we're going to do in terms of playing a three behind the striker and things like that. But Everton have notoriously been a club, in my opinion, for many, many years where we haven't had enough in a striker role because we've always played one up front, which is fine. That's how we've operated. That's to a relative amount how we've succeeded in inverted commas. So it hasn't been that much of an issue. But the way in which we've been, certainly in those relegation seasons, somebody's quite politely quoted me saying that, well, we didn't have a relegation fight in the last 2 years. Okay, fair enough. But Everton have only had one striker for the majority of the seasons where they were in a relegation fight, with that being Dominic Calvert-Lewin. So we're in a situation now where I think we definitely need to go out and get at least another striker. And how highly would you pile that onto the list of everything else we need to go out and get?
Yeah, I mean, let's just take a reality check, because this game against Bournemouth, which is I think probably the first real test, that's on Saturday 26th of July. So that's 3 weeks on Saturday over in America. I'm not totally, and then we play West Ham and Man United. We play West Ham the following Wednesday, and we play Man United on the Sunday, the 3rd of August. Okay. And then we come back, and then it's Roma, and then the following weekend it's Leeds, or the Monday night. I'm not sure we need 6 brand new signings to start against Leeds, because I think the defence kind of picks itself without the right back, and I think Garner can be in the centre of midfield, and I think you could start with Alcaraz and Ndai and McNeil behind Beto. But then your bench is full of ghosts. There is no one on the bench. So we do need some competition, and we do need some variation. My number one priority would be a goal-scoring striker. Absolutely. I think that's what we need. I know that we're linked with this Barry chap from Villarreal, French under-21 international. Don't know.
Big money as well.
Big money. Sort of a Moyes Keane vibe about him. Don't know. Maybe he's a little bit older, but it's a bit of a risk. 20, 30 million on someone like that. Limited funds. People say, "Oh yeah, well, who do you know who's better?" Well, it's more of a proven rate. We have Moyes Keane hasn't really worked. Yusuf Chimiti, one for the future. Seems like he's always one for the future. I'd like to see us finding a 25, 26-year-old striker who's cut the mustard in maybe Liga or Italy, Germany, France, Spain, who's in that 25, 35 million price bracket. Clearly, we can't compete at the very, very top level, but clubs are finding them all the time, and our competitors are finding these people all the time. And I'm a little nervous about putting a large number of eggs into the basket of a French under-21 international who didn't really start for them much in that tournament. But no, it might work out great. But we need goals. The fundamental thing we need is goals, and we need a style of play. And that's what we don't really have a clear handle on from Moyes. Hopefully it won't be 5 at the back. Personally, if I were coaching, I would play, a 4-2-3-1. Some people might prefer a 4-3-3. Some people might even want a 4-2-2. But I certainly don't think, as we said last week, we can afford to have 5 defenders plus a keeper, because we haven't got attacking wing backs. That's just, it's not. We haven't got João Cancelo down one side and, Trent down the other. So I think a centre forward to me is top priority. I'd like to see another creative midfielder, a right winger and a right back. And those are gaping holes, I think, in the squad. And then, midfield, centre midfield worries me a little bit. Idrissa getting on, fantastic season. I'm sure he'll do a great job. But James Garner, he's kind of average, isn't he? Really average. He's come on a little bit. Irabunum shown bits and pieces, but Do we need another bit of quality in the centre of that midfield? I think it goes back to, is our ambition to finish top half? I think that largely is the limit of the ambition, with the clubs around us and the strength of squads they have, the Brightons and others that we've talked about. So probably centre mid is a priority too. But number one, I want to see a goal scorer, and I think that's where you need time. That's where they need to work together in training and in practice matches, Accrington and wherever else, to understand each other's styles of play. Because those partnerships, they click or they don't click, and sometimes they take longer than others. So I don't want to see someone coming in on the 29th of August, when we've already dropped. Well, I've already said we're getting however many points I said last week, 14 points from the first 6 games. But we need, I'm concerned, but I'm seeing enough or hearing enough noises to make me think maybe they know what they're up to, and maybe there is a plan, and maybe they're waiting for Moyes to come back from Barbados or wherever he is, and start signing off on things, drawing up shortlists. We've got money to spend. It's a tricky one. It's a really funny time of year where it's not started, but it's about to start, and we always want things to be done quicker than they are at our club. But we're not the only club that's done nothing.
It's the calm before the storm.
Me, well, we're never calm. I mean, we are never calm, but it's, the waves are a little bit less. It's about the level of on the new shirts. I was waiting actually on the reveal video for the shirts to see someone surfing, off New Brighton or something, because the Mersey's known for its waves, isn't it? Not.
Arriving at the ground in the submarine, given the traffic problems. We'll have plenty more of that to come, I'm sure, as we approach the new season at Bramley Moore. But interesting you say, we'll probably get more of that from Matt and Paddy on this week's byline, which is out tomorrow, which is important time for me to mention that. But with us going in for a unproven young international or under-21 international from Villarreal, and the fee rumoured to be around circa 30 million quid, sort of makes a sort of rub on your own back, doesn't it? Because you're then indicating to all of us as fans that money is there to spend, not only on the squad, but on one player. So that would indicate to many fans, you don't read the newspaper, you go onto any sort of website and think, wow, Everton are going to go out and spend that much money on a striker, an unproven striker. Then that means that the indication is that they're able to go and do that in various other positions, like you've rightly said, are essential for us to go and get this summer. Which, I'd love to think, and I'd love to know that it's factual that Everton have done their homework with this and thought, you know what, we'll budget for this, and they've done the right calculations to be able to say, well, we're able to go and use money in these various areas that are equally a priority. That's never come to pass at our club, has it? Let's face it. Certainly not in my lifetime, anyway. So that to me is a lot of questions that I've got that we're not receiving the answers to as the clock ticks. Interestingly, in the transfer department, Seamus Coleman has been given a 1-year deal to continue at the football club. Now, people who've listened to me bang on for years will know that I have no room and you for sentiment typically, as it seems to rise and gets sort of thrown in our direction every so often, doesn't it? Like it did on the last day, and everything we've been saying about how the club operates in terms of being experts at sentiment and wanting to go over what we've done in the past. Seamus Coleman's different because Seamus Coleman can still play football. How much football is the issue here, I think, because that then turns to the attention that it might well or feel like a sentimental deal that he's been offered here, because Seamus Coleman's not going to go out and play. If he gets on the pitch into double figures, I'd be quite shocked. Either shocked or alarmed, because it means nobody else is
true
to play right back. I love the bones of Seamus Coleman. Let me state this with an asterisk right now, that I wouldn't have gone and given him an extra year. I'd fine if he goes into the coaching staff or anything else in and around the football club, because he's a massive influence to everybody around there. We all know this. great if he goes and does that. Seamus Coleman as a player, I mean, people might be screaming at this saying, well, it's only a year. It's no effect to the books. He might be needed in the case of an emergency. I'd like to sort of be in that side of the arguments, but I mean, are we just kicking the can down the road a little bit here with what is essentially a modern day Everton legend in inverted commas?
Yeah, I see both sides of it. I think when we talked many weeks ago about who we should keep and who we shouldn't, I was in favour of keeping Coleman because I just think for presence and continuity, he may be on the bench most of the time and he may start, half a dozen games, some League Cup games or whatever. I think he's done enough and he's been around enough. And I'm not a sentimental person, but I think you can make an exception every once in a while. That's the point of having rules, so that there's an exception to them. And I'm less concerned about Seamus. He's never going to be our starting right back for the whole season. He doesn't plug a hole. He's not papering over a crack at all. He's a member of a squad, and if that makes the squad 14, it's realistically only 13. But I'm happy that he's staying. And if he can learn and if he can step into the backroom staff in a coaching role, and if he can do some mentoring of some of the younger players, then great. But that's not really worked with the likes of Patterson, has it? And so what the hell's going to happen with Patterson? He's not a fullback. He's not going to start. Are we going to sell him? What's going to happen? Because again, he's one of those 14 players in the squad, but I think we all know he's not going to feature.
With the couple of questions that we had, and thanks for giving those to us this morning quite quickly as well, because we only started recording literally about 20 minutes after I put this question out. But Fonzie's asked us here, probably fitting into what we've spoken about, do you believe in letting DCL, Decore, Young, etc. to go very least offering lower wages due to likely diminished output? Are TFG showing a new Everton are emerging here? And I guess that's at the crux of the debate that we're having here, Rodger, isn't it, really? Because you're sort of in one of two camps here, thinking that, well, they know what they're doing. They've shipped these lads out because they've done their homework. They know who Everton want to go and get. They've got a bucket full of data, and they're able to say, yes, we want him. If we can't get him, then we'll go and get him. Or you can think, well, these lads, need to be put to pasture anyway because they're not sufficient enough or efficient enough to be Premier League footballers, and Everton basically don't want them. Decore would probably fit right in the middle of that for me because many people wanted him to stay, many were fine with him going, but that comes with you need to replace him. Where do you stand with that question there? Because I think that's a really intriguing one.
I think it's a very good question. I think the Dominic Calvert-Lewin one is it does show a slightly ruthless side to Everton because it could have been easy to, but also and Decore, right? So let's just take those two. I think Ashley Young is a special case. Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Abdoulaye Decore have been two of the highest paid players at Everton Football Club, right? They've been on big wages. Decore's been on massive wages, and if you're on whatever you're on, 120 grand a week, and somebody offers you 30, then you're obviously going to go looking elsewhere. He's not worth 120 grand a week, and nor was Calvert-Lewin worth whatever he was on. So if somebody offers you half or less than half of what you're previously on, I think your ego comes in and you don't want to accept it. So Calvert-Lewin, and as a free agent, Calvert-Lewin can probably go to Leeds and get 60, 70 grand a week. Sunderland. I read in the paper today, Sunderland are paying some Mozambique fullback 60 grand a week. You can do that if there's no transfer fee, and I think that's the best he can hope for. I don't think a side like Palace or Brentford or Fulham even would take Calvert-Lewin. I think Leeds or Sunderland, and he might get 60 grand a week there, whereas we were only prepared to offer him 30 if we offered him anything at all. And I think similarly with Decore. So yes, it could show a sign of a ruthless Everton. And a better organised Everton, and an Everton built on data that's got a list of people. If Barry doesn't come to pass, we've got priority 2, 3, 4, and we know that there's a price point we're prepared to pay. So let's hope it is a sign of a more ruthless Everton. Obviously, the counterbalance to that is the Seamus Coleman contract, which, as I said, I'm not displeased by. I think it's fair and reasonable, and I think when there is going to be such tumultuous change at the club, a change of venue after over 100 years. That's pretty tumultuous. Biggest change in the history of Everton Football Club, you might say. There does need to be some continuity, and I think it makes sense to keep Seamus on board.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I disagree with you here. I mean, what you just said makes perfect sense, really, and that truly reflects where we are. But if you fast forward to I don't know, a week before we play or when we get back from the United States, and Everton don't have a right back in, I'd be astonished. I mean, if we don't, I'd be really quite scared to come up, really. And then you've only got Seamus in. I think that's when it says, you could scream at me saying, Dave, I told you so. This is why we've kept Seamus Coleman for this sort of emergency only kind of thing. So that's the scenario when I'm thinking, well, that does make sense. But I mean, like you say, I guess not to sort of sit on the fence with this, but I suppose many will say to sort of have him there isn't a massive cost, and he's essential to these sort of individuals you want in and around the club for training, for everyday activities kind of thing, really. So maybe I am ticking the sentimental button and saying, it's all fine. I want to move on now to talk what you messaged me this morning about what's going on here with the commercial signs at Bramley Moore Dock with seat unique pricing. And we'll go to the shirt with no sponsors in a minute, because I do have a few things to say about that. But tell us what you were referring to there.
Well, I have to admit, right, I'd never heard of Seat Unique. In fact, when it came out, I thought that I didn't really understand that our main ticketing partner was a motor car, because I thought it was the Seat Unique. I thought it was a car that, anyway, it doesn't matter.
Is it Kazoo? Kazoo are car people, aren't you? Arnold Clark or something?
Kazoo were, but as I read it, Seat Unique are our premium ticketing partner, and I didn't understand why, because I think I messaged someone and said, exactly,
actual car.
Exactly, yeah.
Right,
I messaged someone and said, but they make cars. Why are they? Anyway, then I looked, and they are a premium hospitality provider. They provide unique seats. Yeah, no shit. Thank you.
Oh, so it's not the car like a Seat 500
no, it's
or
not
whatever.
No. The
right, okay.
Is Seats Unique. They advertise
Seats,
everywhere.
Not Seat.
Exactly, that's the one. Now, I've argued long and hard over the years that Everton needs to be more commercially astute and needs to sweat the assets a bit more and what have you. But I'm shocked when I look at any email I get from Everton, and whenever I go onto the website, which isn't that often, to check whether or not the academy staff have changed, when we know they changed 3 months ago. But the pop-up ad that comes is for, premium, get your seat for Brighton. And I'm thinking, what do you mean get a seat for Brighton? It's sold out. How can I possibly get a seat for Brighton? Well, worry not, because through Seat Unique, I could go and watch Brighton in the Trinity Place Bar, which is some kind of contemporary themed sporting bar. No idea what that means. I get some free booze, a food voucher, and a padded seat. Lovely. 595 quid.
And where is this situated?
I don't know. It's not entirely clear. I think it's in one of the main stands, one of the side on, not the north or the south. It's the east or the west, but I don't know. I don't know, because I'm not going to pay 595 quid. But that's in the Trinity Place Bar, you see. You could then go to the Trinity Restaurant, because it advertises. And actually this is kind of what's the rub for me. You click on the site, you click on evertonfc.com, you click on it, and it takes you to Seat Unique. It takes you to their website, right? You're no longer on evertonfc.com. And so you're booking through Seat Unique. And then if you don't want the Trinity Place Bar, or let's say there was no availability, you can go to the Trinity Restaurant. And the Trinity Restaurant will give you a 3-course meal, free booze and all of that malarkey. And it's open for an hour after the match, blah, blah, blah. £795 for Brighton. £795, which is about the price of a season ticket somewhere in the stadium, I think.
Yeah, man,
it's just ridiculous. £795, I kid you not, but that isn't the total amount you pay. Because when you click through to buy, right, it adds a booking fee. Guess how much the booking fee is, Dave, for this £795 ticket?
Am I thinking this is similar to something like Ticketmaster or something like that?
It's that kind of
you're getting tickets for like Oasis, and they start throwing in all sorts at the end.
It's that kind of stuff. But the booking fee, which it's £15.90 to book a £795 3-course scampi in the basket, whatever the hell it is that they're going to give you, and unlimited Coors Light or whatever they're going to, throw down your neck. Won't include spirits. It's just wine. Okay. It's just obscene, isn't it? It's just obscene. £800. I mean, that's not the dearest game, because looking at the prices, Brighton is from £595. You can clearly pay more for the restaurants and the like. Villa is the dearest one I could find so far. 649 quid for the Villa game. I mean, who's going to pay that? I mean, probably people will, but it's not right, is it? Isn't it? That's two. How many of these seats are there? I'd really like to know how many of these there are, because we've been so critical of, other clubs, City with their stupid tunnel club that they never sell, and the Red Shite with their, with their Thomas Cook tours and everyone there with their iPads. But we're just doing. It just strikes me as obscene, £800 to watch a football match. FA Cup final, you go on the ticket touting sites maybe, or Club Wembley, but £800 to go to Bramley Moore and have a 3-course meal and an endless supply of beer to sit in a padded seat. It's not really. It seems to be disproportionate, and we seem to have gone from nothing to everything. And then I look at the shirts. Forget the sponsor element. The pro shirt's 115 quid.
Yeah.
Whatever the pro shirt even is. And a regular shirt with or without a sponsor's logo, which we've discussed, £80. I think they've doubled the cost of membership. So what they're now calling Forever Blue Plus, 60 quid for that, to get free streaming of under 21 games and some kind of tier A position in the waiting list. And maybe you get a memento or a flannel or a toothbrush with Everton on. I don't know. And maybe I'm just being grumpy about it, but I don't forget the membership. It's a slightly smaller issue, 30 to 60 quid, but come on, 795 quid plus a £15 booking fee to go and watch. That's not right. No. Is it?
But do you know what? I'll be all over that membership pack if it does a golf ball marker for 60 quid. I'll be all over that. in all seriousness, though, the point you've made there, I've just sort of scrap words about when we're talking, and I've just written the word scale. And is this? And I think really interested to get our thoughts of our listeners with this. Is this Everton? And one guy said emerging, given with the players, maybe it's the same what's going on with the club off the pitch as well. The scale, the sort of movement towards commercial activity, PR, hospitality, those words that I think many fans, certainly those who haven't been able to go, normal average going fans like myself, the majority of the Everton fan base wouldn't even look at that twice, and rightly so. They'd look at it and think, why are we doing that sort of thing? We're meant to be the people's club. We're meant to be able to afford to be able to go to the game. Look how the great work Dave Kirby did in terms of getting the away ticket prices down and all that sort of thing. That still needs to be remain at the fore of what's going on with football, as money, as we've spoken earlier on, continues to grow. There's no ceiling with all of that sort of thing. With this, I think that the owners we've got coming in, and I don't know, well, I probably am stereotyping American owners. This is very much an Americanized sort of thing, isn't it? And again, you'll know more about this than me. To see that incorporated by Everton is a futuristic aspect of the game. So let's take example out of, Chelsea, for instance, who are a ridiculous football club, given what they're able to go and do, selling the women's team and selling hotels to be able to go and buy whatever players they want. That isn't Everton, and thankfully so. But maybe I'm contradicting myself in saying that, thinking, well, that's how we need to operate. This is something that it's the have and have-nots for me. Because, I can't wait for Bramley Moore. We all can't, to go and get our seats, have a look around, everybody there for the first game. The Roma game, for instance, when it's full capacity, and we're able to really look around amongst everybody who's in there to full capacity. That's great. But what the owners, and I guess I'm putting words in their mouth, but I'm pretty sure I'm quite accurate in saying they want more bang for the buck. When you go to watch Everton, I know you mentioned there with the Seat/seats going there. That is just the way football is these days. Am I just throwing a blanket over this and saying, well, don't look at it? Or am I simply saying, well, what many fans would with the price of a kit, say, well, at least that old one of, I don't want to buy it, but I will because it'll help the club out, when it really doesn't. It just gets more
exactly
in somebody's arse pocket, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think I'm in favour of corporate hospitality. I'm in favour of premium seating, but I think it needs to be proportionate. And I think if you're going to charge these prices, we better get some decent bloody players. And
it's all
secondly,
into one pool there, Rodger, isn't it? Because you're only going to go and pay that money for what you're going to go be watching. Now,
correct.
Do you feel as if you've got owners just looking? This might sound bad towards them, but you've got owners who are trying to sell things that aren't really there. I.e., you're selling that price for something, that level of hospitality, when you could be going watching Everton in a relegation fight. That doesn't really equate, no matter how much of a diehard Everton fan you are.
No, I think so, because you see, you might pay that to go and watch Salah or Haaland, or you might pay that to go and watch even Tottenham, Arsenal. Obviously, London, different market, bigger tourist market. You also need to make sure your logistics are right, because you're not going to pay 814 quid, including a booking fee, whatever it works out as, to then have to queue for 90 minutes to get on a train at Sandhills, are you? So the logistics around the stadium, the food can be as nice as you like, and the beer and the hospital seat can be as comfy as you like, but if the football's crap and it's difficult to get to and it's difficult to get away from, pretty soon, I mean, there's going to be a new stadium bounce. Of course there is. People are going to want to be there and experience it and go, oh yeah, I've been to the new Everton stadium, and I'm sure Spurs benefited from that, and Arsenal back in the day did too with their new stadiums. But come the deep midwinter, are people going to pay this sort of money to watch Everton at home to Burnley, on a wet or cold Tuesday in January? That one, yeah. So I think you've got to. There's a big leap forward here. What will happen if these seats aren't sold? Will they come off? Will they be made available to, if all of these seats that are allocated to Seat Unique, if they're not sold, will they be then available to Forever Blue members shortly before the game? I don't know, but it just strikes me that sort of stuff is taking the piss, really, and it's taking the piss a bit too early. We've done well with the pricing of season tickets. I think we minimised the uplift there, and that's commendable. But I think that's just a bit too much, and we sort of paraded them as our unique seating partner. And actually, when you look at the Seat Unique website, they talk about iconic stadiums like Anfield. I mean, they basically pimp every Premier League club seats. They're not our partner. And we're not front and center of their website. When you just go to Seat Unique, you'll find they're pushing City and Liverpool and Chelsea as they're pushing more than they're pushing us. It's just a little sad, and I know Les is concerned about what will happen, and I know we want a new Everton and we want a ruthless, commercially focused Everton, but it's got to be in some sort of proportion, and that strikes me as obscene.
Yeah, you've got to crawl before you can walk, and the club that's come to my mind there when you've been speaking about that is Man United, given falling off a cliff on the pitch, but yet the size of their fan base worldwide, they don't have an issue in throwing out whatever cost when you've got Gary Neville's hotel over the road from it and all that sort of thing. Sadly, the way football is these days, Everton and even goes far as saying the owners, who I'm sure, we've yet to hear from them properly, which I'm sure we will at some point. But as businessmen, they effectively are going to be, we've bought a football club we want to make a profit from. Then if we're able to go and do that, then we will go and do that. So the way in which we're going to go about it is charging these prices, premium seats, and whatever it is, you get a nice handshake when you walk in there, whatever it is, all of that sort of thing is part of what we want Everton to be. And sadly, we have to sell that, don't we? There's no other way around. Is there a way around of Everton becoming a more established top Premier League club rather than having to hit the financial side and smacking the centre of everything else?
It's all going to boil down to what happens on the pitch, isn't it? I remember back in the day, whenever you went into the main stand, you got a complimentary program. If you had a seat, you got a complimentary program. Now a complimentary program is trumpeted as something included in your £795 package. You know,
how much is a program these days, by the way?
Jesus, what was the one for the Southampton game? Was it 20 or 10? 10.
No, you got to be joking.
I think the final game program was at least a tenner, Dave. Yeah.
I tell you, the last time I bought a program, I think it was £3. Now I guess I'm going back at least a decade for that, more than a decade.
Yeah, and look, it's not something that, you know, if you're paying £795, I would expect a free program. Thank you very much. You know, I'd expect to start. Really, I could probably play it right back.
You could now,
or up front. Look, if we are and we become an exciting team, people will want to come and watch us, and that's the first thing. And the second thing is the stadium, accessibility to the stadium. Liverpool's a well-connected city. The trains are great. 2 hours from London, it's absolutely fine. You can do that, and obviously Manchester and, you know, Leeds not far away. So, you know, there's a good catchment area to come to Liverpool. The city's fine. It's the stadium is a bit of an outlier. So we need to get that. We need to get that transport right. And I think that is a can that's been kicked down the road, you know, with everybody blaming everybody else and the club and the city region, the city mayor, the city council, whatever. I mean, but it's patently obvious that the public transport infrastructure for the Hill Dickinson Stadium is nowhere near good enough. And that could cause problems for visitors. You know, what's it like? You and I have been to the Emirates, and, you know, you have to queue for about 20 minutes to get into the tube afterwards, but then you're away because there's a tube network, you know. Similarly at Chelsea and other places, and getting out of the car park at Man United can be difficult. But, you know, there is an infrastructure there. So I think there's a problem. I think it's going to be difficult. And I'll be very interested to see, once the first few games have happened and we get into September, October, you know, the body of the season, whether these packages sell out. So let's see.
It's interesting. I think the discussion we've had in general here, the theme I'm sort of getting at is we've filled various sort of holes in what needs to be done, the various parts of the jigsaw, whatever analogy you want to use. But there are massive parts of it on the pitch that need to be addressed quite quickly, which is obviously the essential thing. And that then sort of the domino effect that has is you're able to then go and look at charging more for stuff because you're liking what you see, and you're able to sell a product that is essential and worth what you're going to see. And the one last thing just before we finish is the kit. The shirt. Well, I'm delighted we're wearing blue socks, by the way. Delighted to see that.
Favor. Yeah.
Prices is the same as last season. But the thing that got me, and again, I'm interested to get your take on this. And it's quite funny. I just think on social media, people just like to argue for argument's sake. When I put on there and said, I'm really, really surprised that you're able to get the adult shirt without steak on it. Which was a massive bugbear for many over several years, hasn't it? You don't want a sponsor on your shirt. People that go to all sorts of different places to be able to get it taken off and for it to look miles better. It does look miles better without the sponsor, and I think the majority of fans would agree with that. And I thought it was really interesting that adults, you could always do it with the kids one, obviously, because it's gambling, but with adult-sized kits, it's £80 for this is the replica one, the pro one, which you need if you're essentially Usain Bolt, because it's meant to help sort your sweat out or something like that. With the £80 one, you can choose to get it with either the sponsor on it or not, which I think is quite interesting, because even just for the sake of the material, I think you could get it for a little bit cheaper than £80 to not have that on your shirt, but lo and behold, it's the same price. What's astonished me is that I know they're into the last year of the contract with us, but have Everton or how have Stake allowed this to happen?
Yeah, I think the whole kit thing is funny with Everton, because I don't think we necessarily get more money the more shirts are sold, because of the whole fanatics outsourcing nonsense that you know, Blainsy in particular has talked about, and it's true. So you know, and I'm not sure. I mean, Stake would clearly want their brand and their name as visible as it can be around the stadium and on every piece of merchandise, training wear, you know, and kits. I think it looks stupid without the sponsor on. I know I don't like the sponsor, but I think it looks stupid.
It's
It's rather like
interesting.
Chelsea.
I didn't expect you to say that, but
Well, no, no, no.
you just mean in terms of like just to look
There
at.
needs to be a sponsor on the shirt because it looks like a training shirt.
Yeah.
Because we're so used to kits. I'm trying to think. I don't think I've even got my oldest Everton kit will still have 1-to-1 on it. There'll still be a sponsor on it.
It was the first time Hafnia was the first one, wasn't it? In the
Hafnia in
80s.
the 80s. Yeah,
That's the first sponsor.
That's right. And I think any kit, right, rather like Chelsea last year when they didn't have a name on the shirt for a long period of time, it looks stupid. What have you got on your shirt? So it's good. I mean, it's the fact that we aren't promoting gambling. Well, yeah, okay, and that's not allowed anyway, is it? Is it next season or the season after? It's curious that Stake allowed it, but I don't think maybe there's no more. Yeah, other than visibility. Obviously, the contract could have stipulated that their brand needs to be on every single piece, but we need to be more like is Stake on all the training wear as well? Because United have got someone different on their training kit, haven't they?
Well, that's another facet of
have the Red Shite. They've got DHL or someone on theirs.
Exactly, they've got Standard Chartered, they've got AXA, they've got all sorts of. I mean, essentially, that's what our owners will want. I think it's pretty safe to say that.
Yeah, I think so. But it's bizarre. It's bizarre, and I'll be interested. If again, we probably won't see the stats, but how many of the shirts are bought without Stake on? But I suppose, look at it another way. If I'm an up-and-coming sponsor, or if I'm a sponsor attracted to sponsoring Everton, I'm not going to say, well, we're not going to any of this shit without our name on. So come next year or next season's negotiations with whoever it is, Sayat or someone, part of the deal needs to be that we're always on the front of the shirt, not you don't have the right to take it off but we can't have alcohol anymore, can you? So you can't have that on kids' kits. So it's an interesting one, but still 80 quid's 80 quid, Dave. It's fucking obscene, isn't it? Dear
yeah, I mean, it is ridiculous. But the club, there's always people always find a way to say you buy this because, and I think the one last season was because Chelsea's was a lot more expensive, which you'd imagine anyway, being a London football club. And I think we were compared to Aston Villa, who are on Castore as well. Which again, they're massively criticised as
they've moved back to Adidas. I think Villa moved back to Adidas last season. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, a lot of people are critical of Castore based on the way things are, and it does remind me of when who was it we had? I can't remember who was making a kit when you ended up getting a Manchester City one when you'd ordered it online or something like that. That happened a few years ago, didn't it? If you went and bought one, it wasn't with Fanatics, was it? It might have been Fanatics initially. The suppliers ended up sending the wrong kits out to the fans.
Oh my God!
Yeah, the badge would rip off and all that sort of thing. So I think hopefully we'll be on those years anyway. But I think that's it for this week's show. We've covered a number of different topics there. Do let us know what you think. Do give us a rating on YouTube. All of the usual things that Les quite eloquently says at the end of every show. Coming up this week, we've got the byline with Paddy and Matt tomorrow. Plenty of transfer stuff is starting to hotten up, hopefully, as me and Rodger have touched upon, and Everton can go and bring some players in, which we badly need. Wednesday, you've got the weekly with Warren. You've got subs weekly on tomorrow night, I believe. And if any transfers break, if any news breaks, if anything else comes out, then we're sitting there ready to go if there's any news that's breaking around Everton Football Club. But thanks as always for listening to us. Thanks to Rodger as always, and hope Les is having an enjoyable time.
Should we have a prediction? We did our points last week, right? Let's have a competition, you and me. How many signings will we have made by this time next week?
This might get people not listening again if this is well out of shot, and we just reflect badly on what we're going to say. I think. Are we going to include Tete as an Everton player already or not?
No,
but that's
no,
isn't it, with Fulham?
Fulham have offered him another 2-year deal, I think. So I think he's going to have choice.
Okay.
So how many new players will we have in the squad by next Monday, 9:30 a.m.?
I'm going to say 1. And if I'd be, I don't know whether I'd be happy or not if it is Tete. Look, I want us to go and get him anyway because all the discussion we've done with on the Fulham side of things, he's essentially a good player that we need, obviously, as a fullback. But yeah, and we can go and kick him on it. We can go and get him because he's on a free transfer. Go and finish that off in 2 weeks' time. One brand new Everton player who we've not yet approached or seen, and you've just pulled a real rabbit from the hat who's going to be top quality. I reckon we're going to have one player who'll probably be turning out shit.
Right, and is that Kenny? But your number one doesn't include Tete, then? No.
What we'll do is take Tete off this. Oh. So I think Everton will have one player,
right,
aside from Tete.
Okay, I'm going with none.
I'm glad we left this near an hour to say, otherwise people will be turning off right now. But yeah, it's another thing. Get in touch and let us know what you think is going to be happening. Will we go and spend 30 million, 40 million quid on an unknown striker from Villarreal? Who knows? But let's hope the transfer windows operate in a better way, in a quicker way, sooner rather than later. Anyway, that's been Blue Monday from me and Rodger. We'll be back next week, and Les will be listening, so we hope he has the remainder of his holidays absolutely fantastic and he's enjoyed listening to us, if indeed he has. Thanks for listening, and we'll speak to you soon. Up the Toffees.